Hi everyone, how's it going? So this is going to be a bit of a different video and a quicker one. I actually just want to talk about Nod-Krai and just have a general discussion about it. Not anything lore specific, but just the idea of going to Nod-Krai next before Shaznia. Because I know a lot of people playing this game have mixed feelings about this, and I can honestly understand that since we've always known the order of each nation. But now we're going to be getting Nod-Krai as a main patch instead of Shaznia. But if I can be perfectly honest, this actually excites me. And I think this is a very good thing. It's a blessing in disguise. I think if we were to go to Shaznia very soon, because I'm pretty sure Nod-Krai is supposed to drop early September, if I'm not mistaken, maybe late August, but I believe it's early September. I don't know the exact date, but it just doesn't feel like we're nearly prepared for that at this point with the lore and the story. Genshin Impact is ramping up. When Nod-Krai drops, we are at the beginning of the end now. This very happy journey going along to each nation, meeting new characters, exploring the elements, the archons, it's over. We are getting to the nitty-gritty and the meat and potatoes of what Teyvat is all about. The history, the wars, the lore, the unsolved mysteries. And I feel that Nod-Krai is going to be a year-long journey that's not really going to have any filler patches because there's so much lore yet to go over. The developers themselves already said in a recent live stream that Nod-Krai is going to act as a region for all elements in all regions. It's a little bit of everything going to be in this year-long patch. A nice little prequel to Shaznia. All of the unanswered questions about each region we visited, the history there, all of the characters we've met over the years, all of the times that we've played quests and it says to be continued. Obviously within a year they're not going to be able to cover everyone, but all the important stuff that ties everything together they will, especially with the archons. But Nod-Krai also gives them the opportunity to say goodbye to the previous regions we visited, the stories and things we've been through there with all the characters, our history there. There is so much untapped lore in this game, it's insane. And we haven't even talked about Nod-Krai itself yet, because people might view Nod-Krai as a filler patch before Shaznia, but that's far from the truth. Just look at the teasers and all the new factions. Some of these factions are new to us, exclusive to Nod-Krai and Shaznia, but the Knights of Avonius, Varka, the Hegson Circle, meeting even more Harbingers, Project Stuja, the Abyss, and much more. And I think there's a lot of lore to go over before we get to Shaznia, which I think Nod-Krai is going to be the perfect place to do that. The Fatui Harbingers haven't even collected the Pyronosis yet. We are not nearly ready enough for Shaznia. And this just kind of dawned on me while thinking about it. From a story perspective and lore perspective, it makes perfect sense. There is so much we haven't seen in the story yet. Most of the Harbingers haven't even made a physical appearance. Out of all the video games I've ever played in my life, Genshin Impact has one of the biggest world buildings and extremely in-depth lore, which is why I fell in love with the game. But when it comes to actually presenting or expressing that lore, you have to dig really deep to find it. I guess that's why channels like myself even exist. It can actually be daunting to find little texts and artifacts, digging through everything to put very cryptic pieces together. It is not like they present most of this stuff to you. They've only even recently started talking about the dragons, the Moon Sisters, and a lot of these other very overarching and important plot points to the overall story and history of Teyvat. Something the average player that plays the game here and there and just plays the main story wouldn't have a clue about. How would they? Not everyone's gonna have the time or have the interest to dig very deeply to find all these secrets and texts and lore bits. I think Nod-Krai is the perfect stepping stone to Shaznia to really build all this world lore together, tie all loose ends, bring everyone up to speed on what's going on. Genshin Impact is always focused on the here and now. Each Archon quest with each region so far is solving the problems with that region currently. Mondstadt with the Valen, Liyue with Osile, Rex Lapis's retirement, Inazuma with the Vision Hunt Decree, you get the point. Most of the very deep, rich history lore is found in the side quests, different books, artifacts, very long and drawn out world quests like the Aranara quest or the ones in the desert, in Fontaine with the Narcissus and Croins. But again, not everyone's playing through that completely, and even the ones that do, are they reading every little bit of it and putting two and two together? Because over the years, let's be honest, you might have already forgot about a world quest you played in Inazuma 2 years ago that might be relevant to the Moon Sisters, for example, or the ancient history of Enkanomiya. how the Welkin Moon ties into everything, the item shop, all the little Easter eggs. There is a lot to go over, and I think when they originally released this trailer mapping out Teyvat's storyline, chapter by chapter, Nod-Krai was probably not part of the original plan from the devs. I think the devs probably realized the potential obstacles they were unintentionally putting together in terms of storytelling. After Inazuma, you probably realized that the world quests got way longer and more broad and drawn out. Even the Archon quests got a little bit longer. And the Archon quests, like I said, were always focused on the here and now, where the world quest and other Easter eggs built off the greater history of Teyvat. But now, Nod-Krai and Shaznia, all of that kind of comes together. Only it's going to be very confusing for a lot of people. A good example is King Deshret and Naboo, the goddess of flowers, that whole story and lore, which I've covered on this channel a bunch. How many players do you think on the top of their heads will be able to remember that even if they played through it? How important the lore there is to the overarching story of Teyvat in the Heavenly Principles, the primordial one, the moons. From the devs themselves, and the overall plan for Nod-Krai is to tie up loose ends with all nations, bring it together. Explore all this stuff we don't know or that was vaguely alluded to, like the Hexen Circle. We get little voice lines here and there, but we've never actually even met them. Varka, the most elusive guy in Mondstadt. I've been waiting to meet Varka since day one. I've been playing this game since it came out. So the fact that we're going to get to meet him, along with the Hexen Circle, more Fatui Harbingers, all these new factions, what the Fatui Harbingers have been up to in Nod-Krai, Nod-Krai itself, the previous Cryo Archon, it's very exciting to me as somebody that loves the lore and story of this game. Plus it gives them a chance to tie up loose ends with the regions we've already visited. I love the fact that we're going to be getting an Archon quest very soon, back in Mondstadt, which I can't wait to cover, especially when it comes to Albedo and the Knights of Favonius. I feel like it's been too long since we've been there. But also the Dark Sea in Inazuma, Dorman Port and Mondstadt, to name a few. They get to tie up all the loose ends in each region, expand it a little more, give us more insight on the history because we already explored the here and now with each region. We met the Hydro Sovereign, Neuvillette, and we've got a lot of lore on the Pyro Sovereign Shukato that died. What about the other sovereigns? What happened to them? Where are they? Have we met them already? Are they in human form? What have they been up to? Have they been reincarnated already? What about Durin? I'm sure we're going to learn about him a lot soon. What about the other shades? And the Moon Sisters. Natlan itself has done a pretty good job at introducing us to the dragons and what they're all about. Because I study the lore of this game so much, and because I make content on it, I already had a pretty good indication of what the dragons were all about. How they were more advanced than we realize, more human-like than we realize. And you guys all know I've covered on this channel a lot the history of Teyvat with the primordial one and the four shades, the relationship with the dragons and the earliest humans. But this has all been done through the very little snippets we get through texts, books, artifacts, secrets and enkanomiya you have to dig for. It's not something the average player is going to even notice or even know to look for. But that's what was so beautiful about it. While you're playing the main story of Genshin Impact, maybe you play this game for the combat, the events. For whatever reason, the player that takes the time to read that extra book or artifact set description might learn something, and then it might send them down the rabbit hole. And it's fun. I remember one of the earliest theories that I had about Genshin Impact on my old channel that's long gone now is La Senora being the Crimson Witch of Flames. It seems like so long ago, but that was a theory I had and people thought I was absolutely nuts for that. But then some people believed me and some people shared that opinion with me, and it was just fun to have those theories. That's why we love this game. But now that we're getting close to Shaznia, I think the developers realized, wow, we have so much lore and context to go over with these people that we can't just throw them in Shaznia and them understand the stakes of what's going on. In the bigger picture, that's simply not fair. So in my honest opinion, I think Nod-Krai is going to be amazing in more ways than one. I think it's going to be fun. We're going to get a bunch of new mechanics, exploration, characters, but for the lore and the story, it's going to be jam-packed, like an all-you-can-eat buffet. We're going to be meeting new Harbingers. We're going to be meeting the Knights of Favonius' actual Grand Master. We're going to be finally getting more context to the Hexen Circle and what they're all about. We're going to get to learn about Nod-Krai, its history, the moons, what Ildadore's planning with Project Stuja, the history of Shaznia, the Cryo Archon, and probably, let's be honest, more Conria lore. Speaking of which, I got a Conria video in the works very soon I think y'all all like. But for those of you that are discouraged that Nod-Krai is now being slotted in here, I can respect that, and I can totally understand the sentiment that Hoyoverse is just trying to stall their story to make more money, stall us out, all these things. I get it, and I can see how it looks that way. And to be honest, I can't even prove that that's not true. Of course, at the end of the day, Hoyoverse is out to make money. That is goal number one, so that's always going to be their priority. And I really hope that's not their only agenda, but just from a lore storytelling standpoint, it makes complete sense to do this way. Because to be honest, if we went to Shesnaya right now, it would be overwhelming for probably most of the players. On how quickly the story is going to ramp up from Natlin to Shesnaya, it would be nuts. But Nod-Krai is going to be an absolute jam-packed lore session that will transition us into the actual endgame in Phase 2. Because remember, the Fatui Harbingers have been collecting the Gnosis for years now. Once they get the Pyronosis, they have all of them. Nod-Krai could very well be what they do with the Gnosis. And then when we finally do get to actual Shesnaya chapter, that could be the aftermath of what they do with the Gnosis, Phase 2 of their grand plan. And by the time we do get to Shesnaya, so much could change by then. And then don't forget, we have Khaenri'ah after Shesnaya even. And to me, that just means we get more years and more time with this story, which I honestly couldn't be happier about. I am 30 years old. I know, I'm old. But I've played a lot of games in my day. And most games throughout my entire life that I've really enjoyed and played, have the fondest memories of, are all because of the story. And Genshin Impact is by far one of the greatest stories I've ever had the privilege of covering in a video game, or experiencing or playing for that matter. I was a die-hard Zelda fan growing up, and I love those games, love the lore and history of those games too, but they give you breadcrumbs compared to what Genshin gives you. And that's not even talking about the anime that they're still gonna make. Hell, if they made a comic book or a book about it, I would read it. If they make an anime about it, which they're still going to, I'm going to cover it. The story, the world building of Genshin and Teyvat, the characters, it's so good. Their only flaw with this game, in my opinion, when it comes to the lore, is they don't give us enough of it. They give us little bits of each character and the overarching plot, and then they kind of leave us hanging for a while. Like Venti. Is he Istaroth, or how does he connect with the Shade of Time? There's all these questions we have. And I think Nod-Krai is going to be a step in the right direction to very firmly start answering those big questions we've had for years. Sorry, I've rambled long enough, but I just wanted to address that I think Nod-Krai is a step in the right direction for Genshin and Teyvat. And I'm not going to tell you how to feel about it. All I can say is, for me personally, I'm very excited they're going this route. I think it's the right thing to do. I'm excited for it. I started my Teyvat journey on day one the minute this game went live. And I plan on finishing it and being there on the last day. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. And as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.